We got the Charlie Cox, the Vincent D'Onofrio. We got Daredevil, Born Again, Episode 2 that we're talking about tonight. And we have Darrin from the M6P. We got a lot of comments in the queue. We're going to break down what we thought about Episode 2. But before we get started on the episode proper, I do have something that I want to show to you guys and get a little bit of a reaction to. This was on Pink Villa. Headline, Eldon Henson and Deborah Ann Woll, for those of you who don't know, that is Foggy and Karen Page, joint cast of Daredevil Born Again Season 2 to reprise their roles as Foggy and Karen. And one thing that I want to point out, the reason why I got this Pink Villa article isn't because I even know who Pink Villa is, but if you look at when this was released, when it was first published, it was the 5th at 8 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. So that's 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So what I think is interesting about that is Tuesday night, 9 o'clock, Marvel drops a 2-hour Daredevil Born Again season premiere. So it's not over till 11 p.m. Eastern. 4 hours later, in the first 10 minutes, Foggy's dead. Within 4 hours minimum, it's on the internet that he'll be back for season 2, and by noon on Wednesday, it was everywhere. Every outlet was telling us that Foggy would be back. What do you guys make of A, that he is coming back, and B, that they felt the need to tell everybody he was coming back before the proverbial fictional body was even cold?
It's pretty clear, right? I mean, this is Disney Plus's mantra is they've got to do a ton of flashbacks. And so this is basically what we know we're going to get out of the next season is there's going to be an inordinate amount of flashbacks that go back years and years. So that's all that it really is, and that's all that it really can be as far as I'm concerned, because it's pretty clear that he's like DED dead. Like he's dead.
Darrin,
dead.
Darrin, do you have a different theory of what they might be doing with him in season 2, or do you think it's going to be just flashbacks?
No, I agree with Tim. I mean, he's dead. He's dead. He's coming back for season 2. I mean, Disney likes to recycle characters and actresses. We know that.
Yeah.
That's what's happening here.
They do.
Now, I did read somewhere, and I'm not familiar with the storyline, maybe you guys are, that Foggy faked his death at one time in the comics. Do you guys know that storyline?
Man,
I'm sure Jared does. Yeah, I'm sure Jared does, but I have no idea.
You don't know that one?
Not right offhand. I'm sure everybody's faked their death in Marvel at some point.
Well, we all know the old mantra that in Marvel nobody's really dead except for Uncle Ben, right? So that's that's the old mantra. So maybe they could RoboCop him up into something as well or something. I don't know, but I don't see a situation in which they actually bring the character back, knowing what they had to do to get the character back in the first place. This rewrite that essentially was just kind of this first episode and kind of changing a few things here and there throughout the course of what they already planned to do. I don't know that they're going to have the pull to actually do something like that now. So, I mean, we'll see, but I just don't. I'll never say never in Marvel, but he appears to be very dead.
Maybe we could do some, like, I don't know if you guys ever watched Rescue Me with Dennis Leary, where he spends most of the show talking to his dead, what was it, his cousin or something that was also a firefighter? It was his best friend. So maybe he could be talking to dead Foggy for most of the next season.
That's right. You know? That's right. I mean, we had Alec Guinness show up for 2 movies after he died, right? There's a lot of, situations that we've seen before where that happened. In The Walking Dead, this was very popular, right? In The Walking Dead, they not only did the flashbacks, they also did the ghost conversation type stuff. This is definitely something that would be a possibility.
Are you guys glad that we're not going to have to see Eldon Henson in a What If series?
Or will we? You know what I mean? Or will we? That's the thing. Because now, here's the thing.
After that last reception, I mean, they got to be done with what ifs at this point. I mean, basically the whole universe, like the whole MCU is a giant what if now because we're jumping timelines, we're jumping realities. So if everything's a what if, then why do you need a show called What If, right? I mean, does it matter?
Yeah.
Like,
now that he's been introduced, I mean, stranger things have been introduced. I mean, I guess the only problem with it would be you would have to come up with some kind of a storyline like, what if Bullseye missed? Well, Bullseye doesn't miss. That's like the nature of his character. So I don't know. That would have to be the only thing. But yeah, I mean, I agree. That
my other question, though,
they wouldn't do that. Great. They would have him go into a school dance with an iguana or something like that, or like how Darcy had an egg with a dove.
Oh yeah, he would.
Marvel Comics.
He would fall in love with Ajax or something. It would be terrible. Anyway.
All right. We went off on a rant.
What do we make? But what do we make of Disney, Marvel's need to not only bring him back, but to tell everyone he's coming back within 3 or 4 hours of him dying on the show? Like, are they hedging their bets?
I think that they know that the rumors about the early screenings and the rewrites and all of that stuff were really, really bad. But when they mentioned that they had brought Deborah Ann Woll and Eldon Henson back, it was one of those things that got the fans excited again, because we all of a sudden were tangentially connecting everything to those Netflix series that everybody loved. So that's why I think they're trying to release this now. They're trying to say, hey, he's coming back again. But, I mean, there's only a limited number of things that he could possibly be doing. That's just the reality of it. With the character dying, there's only a limited number of things he could do.
So I think they were hedging. I think they're trying to let people think maybe he's not, because I think people got excited because they were there, and then you kill him right away. So people are kind of iffy on the series now. They dangle this out there. They're dangling keys. But anyway, before we dive right into episode 2 and some of these comments, I did miss one thing on episode 1, which is, how do you guys think Bullseye survived getting thrown head first from that roof? Like, he was getting up in the scene. Like, he was conscious, and it looked like he was going to stand back up. And, like, Bullseye's not Deadpool. He's not Wolverine. You know what I'm saying? Like, how did he survive that?
Because Disney made it. That's how.
I mean, I do think that they've hinted on Disney Plus, especially, at several regenerating individuals. They mentioned that in She-Hulk as well. So there's been a lot of interest in that kind of thing. And of course, we saw Deadpool and Wolverine. I just feel like that's a wrinkle that they kind of threw in there as something that they were hoping that they could just kind of build off of. Because now, Bullseye in prison, that doesn't last very long. We all know that. I mean, there's way too many things in prison that Bullseye can use as a weapon against anybody. So I am definitely not writing that off just yet. But it was a very interesting thing. It was almost like Michael Myers. I mentioned this last week. It was almost like Michael Myers, like he was down and Karen was looking at him, and then he just started to stand up again. Undertaker just sitting up behind John Cena. It was crazy. So yeah, that is something that was very interesting.
So now, high falls are now exactly as fatal as lightsaber stabbing. What happens on Disney Plus? Let's jump into the comments, and that'll help lead our conversation on episode 2. So John So Knows Nothing. Daredevil is not awful so far. I do think they need to transition away from Fisk, and all indications are that they will. So what do we think about that?
Yeah, I mean, the main villain hasn't even really been introduced, right? I mean, Muse is the main villain of this season. And so...
Wait, are we sure on that? Are we sure on that, though?
I mean, I think they announced it, but I mean, who knows? There are so many things that I see already. I see Bullseye, I see Muse, I see Fisk. There's just so much going on. And then it's like the whole police force, because of what's going on with the White Tiger in this episode. So there's like 4 villains, if you want to look at it that way right now. It's kind of weird and busy, but I do think that they'll transition kind of a little away from Fisk, and I think they kind of have set that up like the diner. It's like, hey, I'll be here just in case you screw up, but, you know, I'm aware that you're here kind of thing.
I feel like Fisk is as much a lead on this show as Daredevil is.
Me too.
Like, he's not just the bad guy. Right there, I mean, yeah.
He's a parallel, and but the thing about it is, like, and I've always liked D'Onofrio's playing Kingpin. I know a lot of people don't, but
Me too. I have too.
I've always thought, but in the Netflix series, ever since he's gotten played the Kingpin in Disney, Hawkeye and all that stuff, I just have not enjoyed it. But to Jon Snow Knows Nothing 1's point, I do think Daredevil's a little awful so far. And I'm the biggest Daredevil fan out there, and it pains me to say that, but I look for it. we'll get into that later, I'm sure. But I do think that they need to transition away. I was getting really bored watching the Kingpin's parts in this. I'll leave it at that. I was like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
He's not a bad guy, or he's a bad guy, not acting like a bad guy, even though we know what's going to turn out by the end of the show. So, fine.
Well, and it's starting to look like Tuesday night, Bone Bridger brought up that review from Screen Rant, raving about the series, and they had whoever the reviewer was had seen the whole series and said, "Oh, this is wonderful because it's a legal procedural."
Yeah,
and it's feeling like a legal procedural, guys. After this episode,
they said it was far and away better than season 1 of the Netflix series, which is just, I mean, that's something that had like a 99% Rotten Tomatoes score. You just can't say that unless it's like the Citizen Kane of a TV series. I mean, you can't say that. So I don't know. I have a feeling that it's going to kind of fall. It's going to end up falling like a lot of the other Disney Plus shows where we say, hey, it was okay, but not great. That's what we're going to say, because that's what Marvel does now.
2 episodes in, I've enjoyed both episodes, right? But I feel like they've set up the structure for the whole season to play like a really long episode of Matlock. You know what I'm saying? There's only going to be one case, so this is going to be Monk, the Minimalist, Matlock. There's going to be a courtroom thing. There's going to be a case. And we just got joined by Jason. Jason is here. Hey, Jason. Jason just got done watching.
Literally, he just screamed into the camera.
And now let's move on to our next comment. What do we got? So I think episode 2 had pacing issues. I do think the trial of the White Tiger is a weird direction to go. So
I think that's correct.
That's kind of playing into what I would say. Yeah. So Jason, what do you feel like? I don't know if you saw Tuesday. We've read a review that said that the whole series plays out like a legal procedural, like Law and Order or something.
I love Law and Order, so
then watch Law and Order and let Daredevil fans watch Daredevil. That's usually the rule there. But
I do have multiple questions though.
Okay.
Because after Defenders, I stopped watching all the Netflix shows because I just hated Defenders.
Yeah,
that's a popular reaction.
I like it. All right.
Was White Tiger in there before?
No, that's definitely a new ad. That's a new ad for sure.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. And I like how they're giving us White Tiger. This is such a show for guys that are like deeply into the lore, nerds like us, because they're talking about White Tiger's power set as if the whole world is familiar with the idea that if he's not wearing the amulet, he doesn't have powers.
Yeah, I know.
What his powers are. I love how they just like glaze over, like, hey, he doesn't have the amulet, and everybody's sitting at home, like, yeah, White Tiger needs that amulet.
Well, and White Tiger is one of those characters where I kind of feel like the one that I was more familiar with was like the Legacy one, right? Wasn't there like there was a female that took over, right?
Yeah, it's a daughter.
There was a female and that's the one that I was familiar with. And so, but I saw that they were I was like, oh, they're like going to the original one, which I wasn't familiar with. So it was one of those very, very slimly known Marvel characters that they just kind of shoved in there. So I thought that was very interesting.
I have a question. Is that cool?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Go ahead.
What did you guys think? Like in episode 1, we know Disney's going to be able to supposedly soup some of the CGI and things up like that. Like when did Daredevil? And this goes back to like suddenly Falcon having Captain America's powers. When did Daredevil suddenly become Spider-Man?
Yeah.
You guys know those shots? I was like, wait a second. It was like, I mean, they were trying to be comic panel accurate with some of the Daredevil stuff, but I was like, the way he was moving and stuff was like, did they just like video games that use the same engine on certain games? Did they just use the same?
I will say, and we did talk about it a little bit on Tuesday night, but the CGI in the fight scenes is something that needs to be done away with. I don't need to see something that looks like PS4 graphics. You know what I mean? When I'm seeing the fight scenes, you've got actual actors that are actually good at this. You know what I mean? They've done it before. So I feel like the only reason they would have done that is some kind of constraint or conflict to not be able to get those two actors or stuntmen or whoever to do it. But I do feel like, I mean, I noticed that as well, Darrin, and that's something that
I feel like the director was just really in love with the idea of these wide establishing shots showing you the whole roof. And it's like, but the guys look like a video game. He's like, no, I need that shot. I need that shot. And they're like, but it costs a lot of money, and it looks way better when you're tight on the real people actually fighting. Yeah. He's like, nope, spend that money. We need the cartoon. We need to break from an actual fight to a cartoon and then back to an actual fight because reasons.
Well, and to Darren's point, the things that he's talking about, like when Daredevil goes to take off, it reminds me of the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man where he just he goes like this and then you just see him go off screen and it's like it's a really bad generic special effect and you're just thinking to yourself, you could have done something so much cooler than that. Than just this, and then you just get lifted off the ground. Nobody believes that's how gravity works. And so I feel like they did a lot of that kind of stuff. And to his point, Daredevil, for all intents and purposes, he's just a really cool blind parkourist, okay? He's not, he doesn't have the ability to leap buildings, I don't know what was going on there, but yeah.
Like when Bullseye makes it to the roof, and now another thing about that fight, like I don't want to spend the whole time on episode 1 of that fight, but these two guys, like they're superhero level combatants, right? They're not superpowered. They have no serums or anything, but they were gassed, like really fast in that fight. They're both gasping for air and stopping. Like they've been fighting for like 20 or 30 minutes, but they've been fighting for like 2 minutes. So it's like, that was an odd direction for them to be gassed like that. And yet, even though they're taking tons of damage, like they're getting stabbed in so many places in ways.
How many knives were in Daredevil?
Like at least 4. Like at least 4 were in Daredevil. And like
not even pulling them out. Like
and which was odd because didn't he have going back to the Netflix series, didn't he have material that wasn't supposed to be able to be cut? I mean, I thought that was very interesting. I was like, weird. So, there are a lot of things here that I didn't really understand about that. But once again, we don't need to spend the whole time on episode 1 on that fight. We did a lot of that on Tuesday, but I thought that was very interesting.
John Snow Does Nothing 1. Was the creepy guy in the book signing line supposed to be Muse?
Yes, that was, I mean, that's the actor. That's the actor. I looked it up. As soon as I saw him on screen. I'm like, that's supposed
Hunter, what's his last name? Hunter.
Yeah, I forget. But I saw that too, and that was the first thing that popped in my mind. I was like, that's their introduction for Muse. So, knowing that he's already close to Daredevil, that's something that is going to be interesting.
I have no familiarity with Muse. Does everybody else?
I don't either.
Like, I have very little, and I'm a Daredevil fan.
I told that to Jared today. I actually told that to Jared today. I said they haven't even really introduced Muse, and that's really what they were pumping up, like in all the promo stuff. So I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen.
Do you know who Muse is? Do you know Muse?
I'm not aware of who that is.
No one knows.
Yeah. So we're all into this stuff, and none of us really know. I mean,
he's got that creepy mask. That's all I know. The creepy mask that looks like he's crying blood or something.
I mean, he looks like a kind of cool character that I might be into. Like, I'm interested to learn more.
I feel like Muse was probably going to be a bigger part of the original version of the show.
Yeah. I think so too.
I feel like he may be trimmed down when they redid this whole thing. Like back to our first comment. I think Fisk is definitely going to be the primary antagonist at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
Thug Dog, they have third it very heavy with the idea that asking about Vanessa is a hot button. The campaign manager and the blogger both came close to crossing into bad territory. It will get someone killed.
Ooh, all right. I can see that happen, like where Kingpin loses his mind and just out of rage finally. That could be, I can see that be a turn.
You know who it's going to be? It's going to be that little brown-nosing campaign guy. That's who it's going to be.
James Gandolfini's son.
Yeah. Yes, that's the guy. Yes, that's the guy. That's the guy that's going to get it from Fisk by asking about Vanessa. Just watch.
Well, in the comics, like, Kingpin will kill you just for mentioning her name. Like, if you mention Vanessa, like, in the wrong, like, you're dead. But this is another thing we skipped over in episode 1 we were talking about. There was so much to talk about, and everybody was a little tired. We have Cuck Kingpin in Daredevil Born Again because his wife has had an affair while he was gone, and she gets to talk about it in veiled terms in their couples therapy. Which is
their couples therapy.
Anytime I hear about that in a Marvel show, I'm hooked. That's what I want to watch. What are they doing?
Did anybody get Mr. and Mrs. Smith vibes from that?
This is just one giant
Sopranos
show.
The Sopranos did
weird. I don't know if it was a good idea to have established that she's had an affair. Now, one thing that was established, we had the blood on Kingpin's knuckles to start the episode. We never figure out what that is. We ended the first episode with him promising Vanessa not to kill her new lover. We opened this one, and he's got blood on his knuckles. So maybe he's dead. Maybe he just got roughed up. I think that's from Vanessa's boyfriend. That's what I'm thinking. Do you guys think so?
Yeah. It's a little early to know for sure. I think that's a good theory. But do you guys know Kingpin's right-hand guy that keeps showing up and nobody knows who he is, the guy with the black hair and stuff?
Yeah.
I bet that's going to end up being Vanessa's lover.
Oh, the right-hand man.
He was right behind the book signing line.
They're building him up a little bit, aren't they? They're building him up. He's always appearing and handling situations.
Yeah, he was at the book signing line. He set up the therapy session. I'm pretty sure he was set to do that. So they're talking about him. Who swears off being a superhero more, Spider-Man or Daredevil?
I think Spider-Man. I think it's Spider-Man that swears it off more. They both have sworn it off, but Spider-Man in the comics, it's like every 3 episodes, he's just like, I'm done with this. Every 3 issues.
Around every 50 issues, he's got to throw the suit in the trash can.
And the difference is sometimes beating people up makes Daredevil feel better, even though he doesn't like to admit it. You can
Charlie Cox does a great job as Daredevil, and I think he has a feel for the character, even if the writers are missing a few things now. The fact that Daredevil doesn't want to be a violent person by nature. I mean, and Kingpin gets this. He is. Like Daredevil, he doesn't want to admit that he enjoys beating these people, but he very much does.
The end of episode 2 was like the perfect compilation of that. You could just, in the music and everything, the score, it came together so well with just him fighting and fighting and fighting not to just kill these 2 guys, and then he's just like, forget all that, and he just goes off and kills them. That's exactly what it is, because like Darrin said, at his core, it makes him feel better. So,
all right. Before we move on to the next comment, I want to throw out something because I just remembered it again. BB. The BB.
Go ahead, Dan.
Now they've killed Ben, so I guess we need a journalist. But the scene in episode 2.
She's a TikToker, isn't she?
Yeah. She's making TikTok videos of it. And episode 2, she comes in. And she's supposed to be our journalist character, our person on the street, our hard-hitting. She sits down in front of Kingpin and produces an info dump.
Yeah.
Where she tells him a bunch of stuff and asks him nothing. Like she just comes in to volunteer a bunch of information to him.
Keep in mind, what had happened was that she was essentially hired in order to raise his profile and get him elected. And that's what we saw in the previous episode, that her blog is like what was spreading a lot of the like man on the street interview type stuff that was kind of raising his profile. So I'm getting the feel that she wasn't just a journalist. She was more of a consultant that was actually hired that can give statistics and data based on the viewership and all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was a little interesting as well, Dan. I
felt like that campaign guy there, though, pulled some strings for her to get an interview. That's the way I read the scene.
Yes.
And like her interview is, hey, all this stuff is happening, and that doesn't even.
And what's going on with your wife?
Right. Like, why is she giving him this big info dump if her question is about his wife? I think Jason is giving up. His internet are not doing good.
Yeah, that was a good question, the last one there.
Yeah, I did enjoy the Spider-Man name check in episode 2. Where Kingpin, we don't need a guy.
And the Punisher.
Dressed up as a spider or a dude with. Now, that's another. Did you guys notice the tattoo on the cop?
I noticed somebody posted about it, but not actually watching it.
And I know it was a skull of some kind. My wife said she went straight to Punisher. It didn't look like a Punisher skull to me, but we'll see. Disney's feeble attempts at grit and grounded storyline are laughable. They are awful compared to Snyderverse. You guys will see eventually. Okay.
Ooh, that sounds awfully familiar.
This almost sounds like Jonathan, but it's not. I feel like people love to have something that's a little more gritty and a little more violent and a little more R-rated, and I think that's fine. I do think that Disney needs to kind of pick a lane. I hate saying that, but they've gotten so engrossed in the idea that they need to serve so many different people when it comes to the genres and all the different things that they need to do. They're completely missing their key demographic. And I not that Daredevil isn't a gritty storyline. It is, but I don't think that they need to go as dark as the Netflix series. I think that they could have done something kind of in the middle and people would have appreciated it. Right now, I think they're trying too hard to replicate the Netflix series, and that's kind of their problem.
I think they're doing that, but I do think that, I mean, it's much brighter. Obviously, Disney's always brighter and everything like that. And to the dark and gritty point, Netflix was a little dark. So I was kind of excited, and I knew going into this that it was going to be a little bit brighter as far as like the whole tone of the thing. But they just didn't do it well. I don't think they did it well. Like they had every opportunity. I mean,
we're only 2 episodes in, so we'll see. But yeah, I mean, if
what you were trying character, I mean, that's the whole tone. If you go back through the history of the comic, I mean, granted,
it was their answer to Batman. I mean, that's what Daredevil was essentially like, their answer to Batman, and it's definitely considered darker. But yeah, I just feel like in the universe that they've built, if they want to see a character that's going to go fluid with that universe, this really wasn't the one that they needed to do. And I don't know that they're doing a good job of replicating what Netflix had done.
Yeah,
I think they would have been better suited. I think they would have been better suited to maybe do their own thing, but then we end up with the She-Hulk stuff, which I hated. So I don't know. I mean, it's
every time they try to do a unique idea, it fails. So they keep recycling, like we talk about. Oh, well, let's go recycle something that works or something, and then we'll ruin that too.
I will say, for my money, since we're there, nothing is ever worse than the Snyderverse. The Snyderverse tries to be dark and serious.
Oh, boy.
It's so very silly. It is so. Yeah. Stupidly.
I don't hate it too much. I mean, I'm not a huge proponent, but I don't hate it.
Yeah, it makes my skin crawl. It really does.
I
tried
the Snyderverse was just trying so hard to make everything so incredibly the tone, the color tones, and the camera shots.
I'll agree with you there, Snyder.
So overdone.
Yeah.
And that's so overdone. So,
yeah, I agree. That's not necessarily DC either. The way their style is, they're obviously much more bright. You know, we're talking about bright stuff and things like that. But I get it. I thought they did it well. It was realistic, I guess. But all right, fair enough.
I jumped down to Jason. Jason wants to know, since his internet won't work, he wants to pop out there how many episodes until he's back in the suit.
It's at least 3, I think, or at least 3 from the suit, I think. But
wow, at the top of one, you get like 10 minutes of Daredevil, and then you don't get any more Daredevil until you're saying episode 6.
Yeah.
Wow.
At least, maybe even longer.
Okay.
We'll see.
Darren, are you okay with episode 6 for your first current day appearance?
I'm not okay with that. I think that's what.
I'm not okay with the first 2 episodes to begin with that much, but it seems kind of crazy what Tim just said. There's 6, but then I start to think about it. I'm like, well, they had to chop this up real good and put it back together.
Well, and if you go back to season 1, if you go all the way back to season 1 of the Netflix series, he was hardly ever in the suit. Okay.
Yeah.
And it almost became like the reveal that they wanted to do so bad.
Well, they're trying to redo
that was the hook. The hook week to week was, will he be in the suit this week? That was the hook. And so I feel like that's going to be it again. I feel like that's what they're going to do to get people to come back. Is he going to be in the suit yet?
I feel like Daredevil season 1, the black suit his homemade thing. I don't feel like we give enough props to that old Incredible Hulk TV special. You remember the Incredible Hulk TV special that had Thor and Daredevil? His black suit, his homemade black suit, looks just like the black suit that he wore in the Incredible Hulk TV special.
I think that's part of the reason they did that too. They're like, I mean, not the full reason, but they're like, might as well tie in this homage back to that.
Of course.
Yeah. I think it is a cool homage. I like that. So let's see. Jon Snow does nothing. Mentions of Punisher and Spider-Man are setting up possible future conflicts with Kingpin, which I would like.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We are never going to get the ground level Spider-Man that we want. But
Frank versus Kingpin, I'm in. Okay. If it's going to be Frank versus Kingpin in this special that they're going to do, I would love that. So we'll see.
Yeah. Let's see. Is the Daredevil storyline possibly too busy with Bullseye, Kingpin, and Muse?
And maybe the police force being on some kind of thing. This is reminiscent of, and I know everybody cover your ears before I say it, Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's very, very much like Falcon and Winter Soldier, where you had Zemo, you had the Flag Smashers, you had Walker, there was just way too much going on. The Wakandans were there. There was all kinds of stuff that you had to like worry about, and I kind of feel like we're kind of pushing into that territory where we're only 2 episodes in, and we've already introduced possibly 4 villains, So it's going to be a very interesting thing.
I mean, Muse, if you didn't already know who was playing him, hasn't been.
You wouldn't even know. Yeah, exactly.
So this is what happens when you make 2 or 3 versions of something, and then try to sew it into one thing, I guess.
And it's really sad because Captain America, the newest
Brave New
World, and then they were supposed to be 2 of the biggest properties coming up, and they were all chopped to bits and pieces before they even got to us, and redone, and it's crazy.
Yeah. Let me go down here and see if Jason's got some more for us. Pulling the Dark Knight Rises. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, busy storyline. Yeah, that was definitely. You had Talia al Ghul, you had Bane, and then you had all the villains that took over Gotham. There's just a lot going on there. I just think that I think I'd like to get to the story that they're actually wanting to tell. I don't think we're there yet, and I think that's the problem. I think they essentially did a 2-episode setup to kind of get us to the point where, okay, now he's kind of just killed 2 guys and he's back as Daredevil. So now we're kind of getting the story that they wanted to tell. But I'm very, very cautious because just because I like the first 2 episodes doesn't mean that I can't fall off a cliff, because I have before, right? I like the first 2 episodes of Secret Invasion. And then, where was it, episode 3 or 4, when we saw that Rhodey was a Skrull and Samuel L. Jackson was married to a Skrull, and it was just, everything was changed. The universe
changed. We got not 1, but 2 Super Skrulls with all the powers of everybody.
And I just thought to myself, well, what am I watching now? So things can start and then go completely haywire. So I'm very cautious right now, but I'm still enjoying it at the moment. Okay, I think I'm a little more optimistic than Darrin is, but I'm being very cautious, and at any point I reserve the right to say this is terrible. So yes.
Good. I don't think they're going to figure out the story. To your point, I don't think they'll figure it out. I think it's just I think there's going to be a lot of iconic moments. Maybe that's what they're trying to sell. But as an overall show or series, it's just all the Marvel stuff's gotten to be the same thing, no matter if it's a movie or the TV shows at this point I'm watching, and they all have the same tone, the same feel, the same humor, the same everything. And it makes it just kind of boring. From maybe that's a simplification of everything going on with them right now, but that's just kind of how it feels. It's just not very good.
I will say where I'm at is that the 2 episodes I've gotten, I actually liked. I think the performances are still good. I've enjoyed Charlie Cox. I've enjoyed Vincent D'Onofrio. I think they're still doing good work. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Punisher because I feel like he's always does good. I do have qualms about what it's setting up, where the story is going, because they keep stacking more stuff, and we know because of the promotional material that they got even more stuff to stack.
That's right. Punisher has not been introduced. When we know he's coming,
we've heard the name Punisher, but we haven't seen Punisher. We know he's in it. We know this Muse character is in it, but again, we don't know anything about Muse. So for all we know, Muse is there to fight the corrupt cops or something. Maybe he's deeply tied into that storyline. So, if we knew more about Muse, maybe he's not a whole nother storyline. Maybe he ties in more closely to one of the ones we've gotten. That article in Screen Rant, combined with what we've seen with the legal wrangling about White Tiger, really has me. I feel like we might get this 10-episode Matlock plot.
A Few Good Men. Yeah, it's going to be.
No, I don't feel
it's going to be a really.
No, it's not that high. It's not A Few Good Men. It's Matlock. It's Matlock. We're down here. Murder, She Wrote, maybe.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. It's courtroom. Did he do it? Who did it? Who is this guy?
Yeah, stuff. Perry Mason. We're gonna go Perry Mason. Yeah, there we go. A really long.
We didn't
Perry
even
Mason.
mention how's Matt getting out of this predicament that we ended the episode with?
I don't know. I have no idea.
His blood and fingerprints are everywhere, so he can't just leave, right?
Yeah. Well, but you're going to come into a situation where somebody's going to tell on themselves. Either Matt is going to tell that he killed these guys, or they're going to have to say that they sent somebody there to kill the witness. One way or the other, it's going to be somebody having to tell on themselves if it's going to get out. So I don't know. I mean, we'll find out. But now Daredevil is a cop killer. That's the thing. So
now, are they both dead? Is one of them dead? Is there any chance neither of these guys are dead?
No, they're dead.
Laughing at that. So
they're dead. Yeah.
That's like that. He broke his neck, right?
I mean, this is a calamity at all. Like the fact that we have to debate this for a review.
I mean, he slammed that guy's head into the refrigerator like 4 times, and I was just like, no, he's dead. He's dead. So yeah.
So see, that's what happens when you bottle up your rage. You've got to let it out. You've got to give the hoodlums beatings on a regular interval so that you feel good with just bruising and mauling them. If you bottle it up as a Daredevil, you end up beating them to death, is what happens. So you can't go a full year.
Was it beating? Yeah. Did you guys notice, did they drop an F-bomb in one of these?
They did. Yeah.
I was like, oh, that coming off guard, just like Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Good job, Disney.
Yeah, it was rated MA, and so I was kind of expecting that. But yeah,
it was like one. It was just one.
It was just one. Yeah. It
so
was
brave.
In the first one, I believe. The first one, right? So,
yeah.
I was wondering. I was like, I hear the F-bomb.
They died. Laugh out. That's what Jason.
Oh, they're
said.
dead.
He's also laughing at the thought that they might not be dead.
Probably dead.
They're dead, Jason. They're dead.
The other thing is, like, you paint your character into that corner. They have to be dead, because if they're not dead, then they're going to bear witness to the fact that the blind guy just beat the crap out of them, and that kind of blows Matt's number one secret identity saver, is that, I'm just a blind guy. I'm not some vigilante out, so do we see – I am not disappointed yet. So far it's been okay. If I have to go 6 episodes or 7 before I get Matt being Daredevil, I'm going to start losing my patience. I need to see the Punisher pretty soon or something. We did get some fights this episode. We got the White Tiger fight, and then we got Matt's fight with the 2 cops. I felt like the choreography was pretty good with those. What did you guys think of the 2 fight scenes?
Something back and forth from the fight scenes to the over to the top CGI and stuff. I can't. It's just like, all right, well, what are you doing here? Which one? I liked the scene where Matt's like, you guys don't want to do this, and you're sitting there like, these guys think he's scared. And I thought that was kind of funny. These guys think Matt, and he was scared, but not of what they thought. He's scared of what he's going to do to these guys, not what they're going to do to him. Way forward. What is our worst case scenario? What is our best case scenario? For me, worst case scenario is this is a 10-episode legal procedural all about the White Tiger and who was that guy and trying to get him off, and we get an episode of Matlock or Monk or something, which, I mean, I like those shows, but I don't need Daredevil in one. So that's my worst case scenario. Best case scenario, within about an episode, like by the end of next episode, he's doing Daredevil stuff and he's in the Daredevil suit, and we have Punisher and we have Muse, and that ties in with Kingpin in some way, like he's pulling the strings, and we don't have any more couples therapy sessions. That's my best case scenario. And my worst case is that we have Matlock. What are your guys' best worst case scenarios going forward? I'll start, Darrin, you go first.
Go ahead.
I don't
Darrin,
think it'll. I think I can see the legal procedural stuff for sure, and I think it'll just be like them dabbling in the clickbait stuff, like the Punisher and stuff, and Muse and whatnot, and we'll have a few good episodes focused, maybe not just one, but 1 or 2 on each of those characters, and with overall arching story involving the Kingpin and Matt. And yeah, I think it's a mess still. I think it's going to be a mess. I think they're going to potentially go with what you're saying, Dan, and try to like tie in a Daredevil story with that. And well, I don't have high hopes. I try to be positive. I really do. But
the ultimate train crashes that I can think of in my brain are train crashes that don't know what story they're telling. And that when I think of Spider-Man 3, right? Who was the main villain in Spider-Man 3? Oh, wait, there were like 4. Okay. You had Sandman, you had Venom, you had Green Goblin, you had, right? And then you take a look at Falcon and Winter Soldier we just mentioned, right? When storylines get too busy and everything gets clouded and you don't know what story you're supposed to be telling and you get too distracted putting 2 episodes on this and then another 2 episodes on this and then another 2 episodes on this and then we come back to this, it makes things way too complicated. Just give me a standard story, okay? From this point forward, Matt is Daredevil. He's back. Give me a standard story with a villain that's linear, easy to follow. That's my best case scenario. My worst case scenario is that it gets clouded and there's a lot of Kingpin, there's a lot of Muse, there's a lot of Bullseye, there's a lot of the cops with the stuff going on. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. So that would be my worst case scenario.
You know what? I thought of a new worst case scenario. Somewhere around episode 5 or 6, right?
Okay.
We get that White Tiger version that you've been talking about, Tim, the young female White Tiger. Because, of course, we can't have a Disney project
without a legacy
movie or a Disney Plus show without giving us a young Avenger. Man, we got to have a young Avenger.
We don't need any more of those.
Yeah. I mean, we got to have Scar. We've got to have young.
We can't even keep track of the ones we got.
Yeah. So that's my new worst case scenario, that we get that. Let's see what we got here. Writers should be over 60 as a prerequisite.
Here.
Yeah, here.
Hey, man.
You're steeped in it and know what's going on. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
You know?
That's better than all these interns they're hiring.
She-Hulk shows up. He says She-Hulk shows up.
Oh,
yeah.
that
would be awful. That would be awful.
That's the worst case. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
All right.
Hey, good deal.
M6P. The M6P is here on YouTube. They're everywhere. All right. Thanks for dropping in, man.
See you, Darrin. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Find Darrin at the M6P. They're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X. They're on all the places. Jason, who had some internet problems tonight, is on Instagram. That's where you'll find Jason. I think it's Jason Colt, and then there's a number. And Travis in the comments, who was going to try to join in with some Daredevil Maybe Live, is on Bill with Travis. So that's where you find all of our friends on the wide world of the internet. And again, we will see you on Tuesday on Bone.
Take care.
Take care.